How does it feel to be replaceable? The question hung over our cafeteria table, silencing all conversation. My fork paused midway to my mouth. 5 coworkers suddenly became intensely interested in their lunch trays, eyes down, shoulders hunched. Terrence leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. He deliberately raised his voice when asking the question, ensuring neighboring tables could hear. I carefully placed my fork down and dabbed the corner of my mouth with my napkin. What an interesting question to ask during lunch, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the heat crawling up my neck. Just thinking about the future, Terrence continued, examining his watch. The expensive one he mentioned purchasing at least weekly. Budget reviews are coming. Executive team needs to know who's truly essential. His eyes fixed on me. And who isn't? I felt Faye's knee press against mine under the table. Silent support. Wyatt cleared his throat but said nothing. Some positions seem important until you look closer, Terrence added, staring directly at me now. Like yours, Merritt. A few awkward chuckles bubbled around the table. Darcy suddenly needed something from the salad bar and escaped. That's when I noticed Imani, our CEO, approaching with her tray. She'd been eating just 2 tables away. This sounds like an engaging discussion, she said, settling into the empty chair beside me. Please, don't stop on my account. Terrence's expression shifted instantly, smile widening as he straightened his posture. Just discussing organizational priorities, Imani. I gathered that much, she replied, unwrapping her silverware. She turned to me. Is that analysis ready for review? I nodded. Completed this morning. Excellent. Let's discuss it tomorrow, she said. Both of you should attend. After she left, Terrence's eyebrows furrowed. What analysis? I gathered my things and stood. Just some numbers you might find interesting. Before I share what happened next, I want to confess something. Many of you are listening to stories like mine but leaving without subscribing or dropping a like. I get it. We're all busy. But if this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt undervalued or pushed aside, I hope you'll stay with me until the end and consider subscribing. Because what happened after that lunch changed everything. Not just for me, but for an entire company. My name is Merritt. Until that day in the cafeteria, I'd spent 18 months as a market research specialist at a mid-sized tech consulting firm. I joined the company with specialized expertise in emerging markets and genuine enthusiasm for our industry. The first week had been promising. Terrence welcomed me with team introductions and encouraging words about my potential. 15 days later, I watched silently from the back row as he presented my comprehensive market expansion strategy to leadership, without once mentioning my contribution. When I questioned him privately about it afterward, he chuckled. Consider it part of your orientation, he said, arranging papers on his desk without looking up. Ideas move upward. Credit stays with management. That's how corporate ladder climbing works. This became my daily reality. My research appeared in his presentations without acknowledgement. My client solutions were attributed to his department leadership. During performance reviews, he cited my insufficient initiative while awarding minimal raises. I wasn't alone. Faye's innovative customer retention program became Terrence's brainchild. Ash's coding solutions were developed under close management guidance. We became a team united by shared resentment, whispering in break rooms, exchanging knowing glances during meetings. I contemplated resignation weekly, updating my resume during lunch breaks, browsing job listings after hours. But the reality of student loans and a struggling economy kept me in place. That and something else, a hardening resolve. The situation deteriorated when our industry hit turbulence. 2 competitors shuttered their doors. Another was acquired and gutted. Whispers of cutbacks spread through our hallways. Terrence began excluding me from critical client meetings, then assigning me the resulting projects without context, setting impossible deadlines. Missing deadlines reflects poorly during budget reviews, he reminded me, with that same smirk from the cafeteria. One evening, working late to salvage a project I'd been given only partial information about, I spotted Imani in the break room. She stood alone, studying sales projections with concern. Those metrics tell half the story, I said before wisdom could stop me. She looked up, expression unreadable. Explain. Instead of retreating, I grabbed a napkin and sketched an alternative framework. We're measuring what's easy to count, not what actually matters to our sustainability. These three factors are more predictive of future performance. To my surprise, she asked thoughtful questions. For 20 minutes, we rethought our approach to market evaluation. As I turned to leave, she asked, "Why haven't these insights reached me before now?" The question cracked open a door. I provided a careful but honest account of information flow within our department. Her expression revealed nothing. But before leaving, she requested a comprehensive analysis, kept strictly between us. For weeks afterward, I maintained parallel work streams, completing Terrence's assigned tasks, while secretly compiling a diagnostic of company operations. I interviewed clients during lunch breaks. I analyzed industry patterns after hours. I identified structural problems and outlined potential solutions. Terrence sensed the shift in my focus. His criticism intensified. The replaceable comment wasn't random. He'd been positioning me for removal for weeks. What he didn't know was that I'd been positioning myself too. The morning after the cafeteria incident, I arrived at the conference room for my meeting with Imani to find Terrence already there, looking self-assured. "Perfect timing," Imani said as I entered. "I was just explaining to Terrence about an extraordinary analysis I received." Terrence nodded confidently. "My department prides itself on thoroughness." Imani opened a folder. "This work identifies 3 fundamental failures within our organization." She slid the document, my analysis, across the table. First, our decision paths are needlessly complex. Second, our compensation doesn't align with contribution. Third, she fixed her gaze on Terrence. "We have patterns of idea appropriation that violate our ethics policy." His smile faltered. "That seems rather subjective. The report includes original submissions, presentation slides, and meeting transcripts showing systematic misattribution," she interrupted. "The evidence spans 18 months and affects multiple employees." What followed stunned even me. Imani outlined a complete company restructuring that eliminated traditional management layers, including Terrence's position. "We're evolving beyond hierarchical thinking," she explained. "We need solution creators, not gatekeepers." Terrence's jaw tightened. "After 8 years of service, you have 2 options," she stated firmly. "Apply for one of the new specialist positions, where performance is transparently measured, or accept separation compensation." He gestured toward me without making eye contact. "And her? Merritt will be developing our innovation division." Terrence's face drained of color. His fingers curled into fists beneath the table. For a moment, I thought he might explode. "I'll need your decision by Friday," Imani concluded, standing to signal the meeting's end. After she left, Terrence remained seated, staring at the wall. I gathered my notes, uncertain what to say or if I should say anything at all. "You planned this," he finally said, voice low. "You went around me." I paused at the door. "I simply did my job thoroughly." "This isn't over," he replied. "People like you don't win against people like me." "That's exactly the problem," I said. "It shouldn't be about winning. It should be about value creation." His laugh was hollow. "Keep believing that fairy tale." I almost walked away then, but turned back. "I'm curious, why did you hire me if you were just going to take credit for my work?" He finally looked at me, expression cold. "Because people with your skills make useful stepping stones." The restructuring announcement went out company-wide that afternoon. Reactions were mixed. Anxiety from those comfortable with traditional hierarchies, excitement from those who'd felt stifled. I received 28 messages within the first hour, most expressing congratulations, some seeking reassurance. Faye burst into my office, closing the door behind her. "Is this real? Tell me this is real." "It's real," I confirmed. "And unsettling and exciting and terrifying all at once." "What happens to Terrence?" "He can apply for a specialist position or take severance," she laughed. "Can you imagine him actually doing work instead of just claiming credit for it?" I couldn't answer. Despite everything, watching someone's carefully constructed world collapse brought no joy. But neither did it bring regret. The next week was chaos. Imani appointed me interim transition lead while formal structures were established. Terrence stopped coming to the office, communicating only through terse emails about his decision to accept severance. Other managers reacted differently. Some embraced the change, others resigned, a few fought it. Late Friday, as I was reviewing transition plans, my office phone rang. "You've destroyed everything," Terrence said without introduction. "Years of building this department, all undone by your little power play." "This isn't about power," I replied. "It's about recognizing contribution. It's about revenge," he snapped. "Don't pretend otherwise." After he hung up, I sat in silence, questioning my motives. Was it revenge? Partly, perhaps. But it was also about building something better. A company where ideas flowed freely, where contribution earned recognition, where collaboration replaced competition. 3 months later, our transformed company showed promising results. Teams self-organized around client needs rather than management preferences. Innovation accelerated. Employee satisfaction scores rose dramatically. My innovation division expanded from 3 people to 12. Then came a moment I hadn't anticipated. Ash burst into my office one morning, tablet in hand. "You need to see this," he said, placing it before me. Terrence just announced his new position. The screen showed a professional networking post. Terrence smiling beside the CEO of our largest competitor, announcing his role as their new chief strategy officer. "He's going to use everything he knows about our restructuring against us," Ash warned. I stared at the image, at Terrence's triumphant smile. The competitor had been struggling, but with our internal knowledge, they could potentially leapfrog our innovations. "Should we tell Imani?" Ash asked. Before I could answer, my phone chimed with a message from Terrence himself. "Stepping stones work both ways. See you in the marketplace." That night, I couldn't sleep. The restructuring had been working, teams collaborating effectively, innovative solutions emerging naturally, client satisfaction improving. But Terrence knew our weaknesses, our plans, our client relationships. He'd been in every strategic meeting for years. More troubling was the realization that Terrence's approach, taking credit, positioning others as stepping stones, had indeed advanced his career. He'd failed upward into an executive role at a major competitor. The system I wanted to change had rewarded him again. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Imani. Her assistant scheduled it for 7 a.m. the following day. Never a good sign. "You've seen the announcement," she said when I entered her office. I nodded. "I'm concerned about the competitive implications." "As am I." She gestured toward a chair. "But I'm more concerned about your reaction." "My reaction? Will you let this derail everything we've built?" she asked. "Because that's exactly what he wants." Her directness caught me off guard. "I'm not sure what you mean." "When people like Terrence lose, they want everyone else to lose too. The question is whether you'll give him that satisfaction." I hadn't expected this perspective. "What do you suggest?" She leaned forward. "We accelerate. We innovate faster than he can copy. We build stronger client relationships than he can damage. We create a company so fundamentally different that his old knowledge becomes obsolete. And if we can't, then we failed because we built something fragile, not because Terrence knew our secrets." She smiled slightly, but I don't think that's the case. As I left her office, my phone chimed with another message from Terrence. "First client meeting today. Your former accounts seem very interested in hearing about leadership changes." The taunt was clear. He planned to poach our clients by sowing doubt about our new structure. I started to type a response, then deleted it. Engaging would only validate his approach. Instead, I called an emergency meeting with our client services team. "We need to reach out to every account today, not defensively, but to reinforce the benefits they're already seeing from our restructuring." By noon, we'd contacted half our client list. By end of day, we'd reached them all. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Clients had noticed improved responsiveness, creative solutions, and greater transparency under our new model. That evening, I received an unexpected call from Arnie, our largest client's procurement director. "Interesting lunch today," he said. "Your former colleague made some concerning claims about instability at your company." My heart sank. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be," Arnie chuckled. His approach was so transparently self-serving that it backfired. He kept referring to my clients and my strategies when discussing work we know came from your team. What did you tell him? That we value partnership over personality, that results speak louder than resumes, and that we're quite happy with our current arrangement. He paused. Though he did make a compelling offer on pricing, the implication was clear. They were satisfied but open to negotiation. I took a deep breath. Arnie, I won't play pricing games. What I will do is invite you to our innovation lab next week. See what we're building, meet the actual creators, and then decide if what we offer brings sufficient value. The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. That, he finally said, is exactly why we'll stay with your company. Over the next week, 3 more clients reported similar experiences. Terrence was making aggressive moves, but our transparent approach was resonating more strongly than his promises. Then came the first test of our new model. A potential client, larger than any we'd worked with previously, requested proposals from both our company and Terrence's for a major international project. This is it, Faye said during our planning session. Direct competition. Us versus him. No, I corrected. Not us versus him. Our approach versus theirs. This isn't personal. But despite my words, it felt intensely personal. Terrence had messaged again. Enjoy competing against someone who knows all your tricks. Some things never change. The best strategist still wins. The team worked through weekends to develop our proposal. Rather than the traditional approach, a polished presentation concealing implementation details, we created an open book proposal outlining our thinking process, acknowledging challenges, and demonstrating collaborative problem solving. The presentation day arrived. As we set up in the client's conference room, the door opened and Terrence walked in with his team. He faltered momentarily upon seeing me, then recovered with a broad smile. Merritt, he said loudly, extending his hand. How nice to see you still with the company. I shook his hand briefly. Looking forward to an interesting discussion today. His team presented first, a slick, confident display of market understanding and strategic thinking, much of it eerily familiar to approaches developed in my innovation lab. Terrence frequently referred to my strategic framework and my implementation methodology. When our turn came, I began differently. Before we start, I want to acknowledge something. You'll notice similarities between our approach and what you just heard. That's because these ideas were developed by some of the same people. The difference is who gets to present them today. Terrence's face darkened. I continued, in our company, the people who create the solutions are the ones who share them with you. So today, you won't primarily hear from me. You'll hear directly from the specialists who would serve your account. One by one, our team members presented their components. Faye on customer engagement, Ash on technical implementation, Wyatt on market positioning, Darcy on regulatory compliance. The client team asked challenging questions, which our specialists answered with confidence and candor, occasionally consulting with each other when a question crossed domains. When the client's chief innovation officer asked about risk factors, I didn't intercept the question. Darcy candidly identified 3 potential challenges and outlined our contingency approaches. As we concluded, the CIO leaned forward. I'm curious. Your team openly acknowledged limitations and challenges. Most firms present only certainties. We believe pretending to have all answers creates more risk than acknowledging uncertainty. I replied. We've found transparent collaboration leads to better outcomes than confident directives. The client team exchanged glances. Thank you all. We'll be in touch within the week. Outside the building, Terrence caught up with me in the parking lot. Cute stunt in there, positioning yourselves as the honest underdogs. It wasn't a stunt, I replied, continuing toward my car. He kept pace beside me. You still don't get it, do you? Clients don't want collaboration. They want confidence. They want someone who'll take responsibility. I stopped walking. Taking responsibility isn't the same as taking credit. Semantics, he scoffed. You'll see when they announce their decision. 3 days later, the client called. They'd selected our company for the project, the largest in our history. The deciding factor, they said, was our collaborative approach and transparent acknowledgement of challenges. That afternoon, a company-wide email announced our success. The project would expand our international presence and validate our restructured approach. The celebration spread across departments. As I returned to my office after an impromptu gathering, I found a note on my desk. No name, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Enjoy your moment, but remember, markets change, clients are fickle, and novelty wears off. The real world rewards strength, not collaboration. We'll revisit this conversation in 6 months. I stared at the note, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest that Terrence always managed to trigger. 6 months. A challenge and a threat wrapped into one. I considered shredding it, but instead tucked it into my desk drawer. Sometimes we need reminders of where we've been to appreciate how far we've come. The international project launched the following week. Our collaborative model faced its first major test, coordinating specialists across time zones without traditional management hierarchies. The client assigned Lark, their demanding international director, as our primary contact. Her reputation for exhaustive questioning and skepticism preceded her. During our kickoff video call, she wasted no time addressing her concerns. "Your structure intrigues me," she said, tapping a pen against her notepad. "But I worry about accountability. When problems arise, and they will, who takes responsibility if there's no traditional manager?" "We all do," I explained. "Responsibility is distributed, not delegated. Each specialist owns their component, but we collectively own the outcome." She leaned closer to the camera. "And when your specialists disagree, who breaks the tie?" "The client's best interest breaks the tie," I replied. "We document disagreements, evaluate options against client goals, and proceed with what best serves those goals." Lark's expression remained skeptical. Theoretical responses. "Let's see how it functions under pressure." Pressure came sooner than expected. 2 weeks into the project, a regulatory change in one of our target markets threatened to derail our entire implementation timeline. In the traditional model, Terrence would have made a unilateral decision, likely concealing the full implications from the client until forced to reveal them. Instead, our team collaborated on 3 potential approaches, transparently presented them to Lark with their respective trade-offs, and implemented her selected direction. The problem was solved within days rather than becoming a month-long crisis. After the regulatory hurdle, Lark's skepticism began softening. She started engaging directly with our specialists rather than routing everything through me. The project gained momentum. Weekly metrics showed we were exceeding targets despite the early setback. Then came the email I'd been half expecting, half dreading. A message from Kieran, our client's founder, forwarding correspondence from Terrence. "I thought you should see this. Your competitor seems quite interested in our project." The attached message from Terrence claimed insider knowledge about our implementation difficulties and offered to rescue the project at a reduced fee. He detailed supposed weaknesses in our approach that only someone with internal knowledge could know or convincingly fabricate. I called Kieran immediately. "I apologize for this situation. Our former colleague is—" "No need to explain," Kieran interrupted. "Lark has kept me well informed about your actual progress. I found his email interesting primarily for what it reveals about his character." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you for your understanding. Transparency builds trust, Merritt. Your team has been refreshingly honest about both successes and challenges. That's far more valuable than promises from someone willing to undermine former colleagues." After the call, I forwarded the exchange to Amani with a brief note. "FYI, Terrence actively attempting to poach clients using internal knowledge. Client response attached." Her reply came minutes later. "Not surprised. Our best defense remains consistent delivery, though legal may want to review his employment terms regarding confidentiality." End quote. 3 months into the project, our restructured approach was proving remarkably effective. Innovation happened faster without management bottlenecks. Client satisfaction scores reached unprecedented levels. Team members reported greater job satisfaction despite working harder than before. The media noticed. An industry publication requested an interview about our revolutionary management experiment. The resulting article sparked conversations across our sector about alternative organizational models. The day after publication, I received another message from Terrence. "Enjoying your 15 minutes? Novelty makes for good articles, but poor business models. Our Q2 numbers come out next week. Compare them to yours before celebrating too much." I didn't respond. Our numbers would speak for themselves. And they did. Our quarterly results showed 23% growth compared to their 14%. More telling was employee retention. We'd lost only 2 people since restructuring, while industry sources indicated Terrence's company was experiencing significant turnover. 5 months into our international project, 1 month before Terrence's self-imposed deadline, I received an unexpected visit. Wyatt knocked on my office door, expression unusually serious. "Someone's waiting to see you in the lobby," he said. "Darcy from Terrence's team." Darcy had been Terrence's executive assistant for years, instrumental in his day-to-day operations. We'd never been close, but she'd always treated me with professional courtesy. I found her sitting tensely in our reception area, clutching her handbag. When she saw me, she stood quickly. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" she asked, voice low. I led her to a small conference room and closed the door. "What brings you here, Darcy?" She placed her handbag on the table, hands trembling slightly. "I shouldn't be doing this. If Terrence found out, whatever you share stays between us," I assured her. She took a deep breath. "Terrence has been systematically targeting your clients, not just competing for business, actively working to undermine your relationships. We've noticed," I acknowledged. "It's worse than you think. He's created a dedicated team focused solely on identifying weaknesses in your projects. They're instructed to watch for any implementation hiccups and immediately reach out to those clients with rescue offers." While concerning, this wasn't entirely surprising. "Why are you telling me this?" Darcy's eyes met mine. "Because it's not just business for him. It's personal. In management meetings, he talks about destroying you specifically. He's convinced you deliberately sabotaged his career. I simply provided factual information," I countered. "I know that," she said. "I processed your reports for years. I saw how he took credit for your work." She hesitated. "There's more. He's preparing something big against your international project. I don't know details, but he called it his checkmate move." My mind raced through possibilities. What could he possibly do to derail a successfully progressing project? "Why are you risking your position to tell me this?" I asked. Darcy looked down at her hands. "Last week, my mother needed emergency surgery. I requested 2 days off. Terrence denied it, saying, 'Personal problems can't interfere with business priorities.' I went anyway. When I returned, I found I'd been demoted." Her voice hardened. "He built his career taking credit for others' work. Now he's building his company the same way." After Darcy left, I called an emergency meeting with our international project team. Without revealing my source, I shared that we should prepare for potential disruption. "What kind of disruption?" Faye asked. "Unknown. But knowing Terrence, it will target what he perceives as our greatest vulnerability." Ash leaned forward. "Which is?" I considered this carefully. "Our transparency. He believes it makes us vulnerable because we acknowledge challenges rather than hiding them." "So, we prepare by being even more transparent?" Wyatt sounded skeptical. "Exactly," I replied. "We proactively identify every potential issue, however minor, and share them with the client before Terrence can use them against us." For the next week, our team conducted exhaustive reviews of every project component, documenting potential weaknesses and developing contingency plans. We scheduled a comprehensive update with Lark and Kieran to share our findings. The night before the presentation, I worked late, refining our approach. As I was preparing to leave, my office phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. "Is this Merritt?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Vima. I'm Chief Legal Counsel at Northstar Partners." My pulse quickened. Northstar was one of the largest investment firms in our sector, known for strategic acquisitions. "I apologize for calling after hours," she continued, "but we've just received some concerning information about your company that requires immediate attention." "What information?" "A detailed dossier suggesting your recent restructuring has created significant legal exposure. It includes internal documents, client communications, and financial projections suggesting imminent instability." Terrence's checkmate move suddenly became clear. He wasn't just targeting our clients. He was attempting to devalue our entire company. "The materials are compelling enough that our acquisition committee has paused consideration of your company," Vima continued. We were planning to approach with an offer next quarter. I hadn't known we were even on their radar. These materials were provided by a competitor, I assume? I'm not at liberty to disclose the source, she replied diplomatically. But yes, someone with an obvious interest in affecting our perception of your company. I'd like the opportunity to address these concerns directly, I said. The information you've received is from a former manager who was separated during our restructuring. That context is helpful, Vima acknowledged. Are you available to meet tomorrow? Absolutely. After arranging details, I immediately called Imani, explaining the situation. So that's his play, she said thoughtfully. Not attacking the project, but undermining our company valuation. Clever. What's our response? I asked. Complete transparency, as always, she replied. Prepare a full disclosure package, the good, the bad, and the uncertain. Include our contingency plans for various scenarios, and bring Faye with you to the meeting. Her financial analysis will be crucial. The next morning, Faye and I arrived at Northstar's impressive downtown offices. Vima greeted us in the lobby, escorting us to a conference room where 4 other executives waited. Their expressions ranged from curious to skeptical. Thank you for meeting on such short notice, I began. Before addressing specific concerns, I'd like to provide context about our company's transformation. For the next hour, Faye and I walked them through our restructuring journey, the challenges, the successes, and most importantly, the data supporting our approach. We directly addressed each concern raised in Terrence's dossier, neither minimizing legitimate issues nor accepting mischaracterizations. When we finished, the room remained silent for several moments. Finally, Northstar's acquisition director spoke. This is the most forthright pre-acquisition discussion I've experienced in 20 years. Most companies spend months hiding problems we eventually discover anyway. Hiding problems doesn't solve them, I replied. We prefer focusing energy on solutions rather than concealment. Your competitor painted quite a different picture, Vima noted. I imagine he did, I acknowledged. He represents a traditional management approach that values hierarchy over contribution. We've chosen a different path. The acquisition director nodded slowly. We'll need time to reconsider our position, but I appreciate your candor today. As we left the building, Faye grabbed my arm excitedly. Did you catch that? Reconsider our position. They're still interested. Maybe, I cautioned, but that wasn't our primary goal. We needed to neutralize Terrence's attack, not secure an acquisition. Still, Faye insisted. It's a powerful validation of our approach. She was right. Even without an acquisition offer, having Northstar's interest confirmed our model's viability. It wasn't just working, it was attracting serious attention. That afternoon, we presented our comprehensive risk assessment to Lark and Kieran. Their response exceeded expectations. This level of proactive disclosure is unprecedented, Kieran said. Most firms only reveal problems after they've become crises. Precisely why we chose your company, Lark added, her earlier skepticism completely gone. This approach significantly reduces our overall project risk. By day's end, not only had we neutralized Terrence's potential disruption, we'd strengthened both client relationships and acquisition interest. I returned to my office feeling cautiously optimistic. A notification chimed on my computer. An email from Terrence, sent just minutes ago. Heard you had an interesting meeting today. Don't celebrate yet. You've survived the opening moves, but the game continues. 6-month deadline still stands. I closed the email without responding. His chess metaphors were growing tiresome. This wasn't a game with artificial rules and boundaries. This was about creating sustainable value versus extracting personal gain. The following week brought unexpected news. Northstar Partners announced a major investment in our company. Not a full acquisition, but a strategic partnership that would accelerate our international expansion. The press release specifically cited our innovative organizational model as a key factor in their decision. Hours after the announcement, I received a text message from an unknown number. This changes nothing. But it had changed everything. Northstar's investment validated our approach industry-wide. Our stock price jumped. Potential clients reached out, intrigued by our restructured model. The very thing Terrence had attempted to undermine had become our greatest market differentiator. Exactly 6 months after his note, I received a meeting request from a competitor. Not Terrence's company, but another major player in our industry. Curious, I accepted. Their CEO, Eliza, came directly to the point. We're interested in acquiring your innovative division. We're not looking to sell, I replied. Everyone has a price, she countered. And frankly, we're concerned about your competitive impact if we don't bring you into our fold. Meaning you'd rather acquire our approach than compete against it. She smiled thinly. Precisely. Innovation is valuable. Disruptive innovation is priceless. I appreciate your interest, I said, but we're committed to our independence. As she was leaving, Eliza paused. I should mention, we're also in talks with Terrence's company about a potential merger. He suggested your division might be more acquisition-friendly than you're indicating. The implications were clear. Terrence was positioning himself for a potential takeover of our division through a third-party merger. If successful, he would effectively become my boss again. I reported the conversation to Imani immediately. This confirms our market impact, she noted. When competitors try to acquire you, you're doing something right. She leaned back in her chair. But Terrence's involvement complicates things. He's still trying to undermine us, I agreed, just through increasingly sophisticated means. Imani studied me thoughtfully. After everything that's happened, I'm curious. What do you want the end result to be with Terrence? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on defending against his attacks that I hadn't considered my ultimate goal. I want him to stop interfering with our business, I began. I want our model to succeed despite his efforts to undermine it. I paused, considering more deeply. But what I really want is vindication. Not just personal vindication, but validation that our approach creates more value than his extractive model. Imani nodded. Then perhaps it's time we stop playing defense. What do you mean? For months, we've been reacting to Terrence's moves. Maybe it's time we made our own. She smiled. Your revenge shouldn't be about destroying Terrence. It should be about building something so successful that his approach becomes obsolete. The idea resonated deeply. True vindication wouldn't come from Terrence's failure, but from our success becoming undeniable, even to him. Over the next weeks, we accelerated our innovation initiatives while monitoring merger discussions between Terrence's company and Eliza's. Our international project neared successful completion. Client testimonials poured in, validating our collaborative approach. Our stock continued climbing while our competition struggled with retention issues. Then came news that changed the landscape entirely. Terrence's company announced a merger with Eliza's, a move that would create the largest firm in our sector. Market analysts praised the combined entity's potential to dominate the industry. Terrence's message arrived minutes after the announcement. Checkmate. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had he won after all? The merged company would have resources and market position we couldn't match. Perhaps the traditional model would prevail simply through consolidation and market power. I was still processing this when Imani called an emergency leadership meeting. Her expression was uncharacteristically animated as we gathered. The merger announcement changes everything, she began. They'll be formidable competitors, Faye acknowledged. That's not what I mean, Imani replied. Look deeper at the announcement details. Terrence isn't taking the CEO position. He's being named Chief Strategy Officer. Eliza remains CEO. So? Ash asked. So the power dynamics are clear, Imani explained. Eliza acquired his company, not the other way around. She's the decision maker. I began to see her direction, and Eliza approached us first. Exactly, Imani smiled. She values our innovation model. Now she's acquired a company with traditional hierarchy. The cultures will inevitably clash, creating an opportunity, I continued, for us to demonstrate which model produces better results. Precisely. Imani distributed folders to each of us. This is our response to the merger. Review it tonight. We implement tomorrow. Inside my folder was a comprehensive plan titled Open Innovation Initiative. Rather than competing directly against the newly merged giant, we would transform into a completely open organization, sharing our methods, publishing our results, and inviting industry participation in collaborative projects. The approach was counterintuitive yet brilliant. Instead of fighting for market share, we would become the industry's innovation engine. Our competitors could either adopt our collaborative methods or risk falling behind as the market evolved around them. The plan included a dramatic announcement. We would open source our organizational model, providing detailed implementation guides for any company wanting to restructure. We would offer transition consulting to help traditional companies evolve. We would create an industry consortium dedicated to collaborative innovation. As I read further, I understood the genius of Imani's strategy. By open sourcing our approach, we would accelerate industry transformation toward the very model Terrence had fought against. His merger victory would become hollow as the market itself evolved beyond his traditional paradigm. This wasn't just about our company versus his anymore. This was about reshaping an entire industry. The next morning, I found a package on my desk, a small wooden box containing a chess piece, a white queen with a note attached. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't capturing your opponent's pieces, but changing the nature of the game. Imani. I placed the queen on my desk as we finalized our announcement. By afternoon, our Open Innovation Initiative hit the newswires. The market response was immediate and overwhelming. Our stock jumped 28% by closing bell. Industry publications scrambled for interviews. Competing companies, including smaller firms threatened by the merger, reached out about joining our consortium. But the response I awaited most came the following day, a message request from an unknown profile on a professional networking site. I accepted, revealing a direct message from Terrence. What exactly do you think you're accomplishing with this publicity stunt? For the first time in our long conflict, I felt no anxiety reading his words, only clarity. I replied, creating an industry where everyone can contribute their best work and be recognized for it, where ideas flow freely instead of being captured for personal advancement, where collaboration creates more value than competition. His response came quickly. Idealistic nonsense. Business isn't about making everyone feel valued. It's about results. I agree completely about results, I wrote back, which is why our next announcement might interest you. What announcement? I didn't reply. He would find out with everyone else tomorrow. That night, I could barely sleep, anticipating what was coming. Our plan's next phase was the boldest yet, and the one most likely to finally break Terrence's certainty about his approach. Morning arrived with a flurry of preparation. At precisely 9 a.m., Imani stepped onto the stage at our hastily arranged press conference. Camera flashes punctuated her opening remarks about industry transformation and collaborative potential. Then she revealed our bombshell. Today, we're announcing the Transparent Performance Initiative. Beginning next quarter, we will publicly publish side-by-side comparisons of project outcomes under traditional management versus collaborative models. We've already secured participation from 12 companies across the industry spectrum. Reporters erupted with questions. Imani held up her hand for silence. But the most significant participant, she continued, confirmed just this morning. Eliza Nowen, CEO of the newly merged Pinnacle Astral Group, has committed their organization to this transparent comparison. The room exploded with activity. This was unprecedented, a direct, public performance comparison between competing organizational models. I watched from offstage, imagining Terrence's reaction. Eliza had committed his company without consulting him, a clear indication of the actual power dynamics in their merger. His traditional approach would now be measured directly against our collaborative model, with results published for the entire industry to see. As the press conference concluded, my phone vibrated with an incoming call. Terrence. I stepped into a quiet corner before answering. Hello, Terrence. What have you done? His voice trembled with barely controlled rage. Eliza had no right to commit us to this ridiculous comparison. Actually, as CEO, she has every right, I replied calmly. That's how traditional hierarchy works, isn't it? Decisions flow from the top. This is about revenge, he hissed. You've manipulated this entire situation. No, Terrence. This is about accountability and transparency. Two things you've spent your career avoiding. The line went silent for several seconds. You think you've won, he finally said, but you're forgetting something crucial. I know how to work within a hierarchical system. I know how to ensure my division outperforms yours, regardless of your fancy collaborative approach. That's exactly the point, I replied. If your traditional model genuinely produces better results, you should welcome this comparison. Unless, I paused, unless you're not actually confident in your approach. This conversation is over, he snapped. I'll see you in the performance rankings. The line went dead. I pocketed my phone, feeling neither triumph nor anxiety, only certainty that the real test was finally beginning. 6 weeks after the announcement, implementation teams from both companies met to establish measurement protocols. Terrence attended, uncharacteristically subdued. The merger was clearly proving more challenging than anticipated, with reports of significant internal conflicts between the combining cultures. As the meeting concluded, Terrence approached me. This little experiment won't prove what you think it will. It's not about proving anything, I replied. It's about learning what actually works best. He laughed hollowly. Still clinging to your idealism, he lowered his voice. But know this, I haven't forgotten who started this conflict. Your transparency crusade destroyed my career trajectory. Whatever happens with this comparison, that debt remains unpaid. As he walked away, I realized something important. Despite everything, Terrence still viewed our situation through the lens of personal competition rather than organizational effectiveness. He couldn't separate his ego from his business approach. And that, I suddenly understood, was his fundamental weakness. The first quarterly comparison results were scheduled for release in exactly 1 month. Both companies were implementing similar projects for different clients, with agreed-upon metrics for evaluation. The industry waited with collective breath held. In the meantime, our Open Innovation Initiative gained momentum. 23 companies had joined our consortium. Our training programs for collaborative restructuring had waiting lists. The industry was evolving rapidly, with or without Terrence's participation. 1 week before the results announcement, I received an unexpected visitor. Eliza requested a private meeting, arriving at our offices late evening after most staff had departed. I'll be direct, she said once we were seated in my office. The comparison results are troubling for our traditional divisions. I waited silently. Terrence's department is significantly underperforming compared to your collaborative teams, she continued. Client satisfaction, innovation metrics, implementation timelines, all favor your approach. That aligns with our experience, I acknowledged. The problem, she sighed, is that Terrence is attempting to manipulate the results. He's pressuring project managers to adjust timelines, revise client feedback, and modify resource allocations retroactively. This wasn't entirely surprising, but her willingness to disclose it was. Why are you telling me this? Eliza leaned forward. Because I didn't merge with his company to preserve an outdated management model. I did it to acquire market share while transitioning to a more effective approach. Your approach. And Terrence is resisting that transition. Vehemently, she confirmed. He views it as personal vindication or failure rather than organizational evolution. I considered the implications. What do you need from me? Partnership, she replied. Not competition. I want our company to evolve toward your collaborative model with your consortium's guidance. But first, I need to address the Terrence situation. How can I help? She smiled slightly. By doing nothing. Let the unmodified comparison results publish as scheduled. The data speaks for itself. After she left, I sat alone in my office, contemplating the conversation. Terrence's resistance to change wasn't just about me anymore. It was becoming a liability to his own company. His focus on winning our personal battle was causing him to lose the larger war. The morning the comparison results were scheduled for release, I arrived early to find an urgent message from Darcy. Emergency at Terrence's office. Come quickly if you can. Back entrance. Concerned and curious, I drove to their headquarters. Darcy met me at a service door, expression tense. Thank you for coming, she whispered, leading me through back corridors. Terrence had a complete meltdown when he saw the final comparison report. He's been here all night trying to revise the numbers. Why did you call me? She stopped outside a conference room door. Because what's happening in there needs a witness besides me. Through the door's window, I could see Terrence facing Eliza and 2 board members. His face was flushed, hands gesticulating wildly. Eliza's expression remained impassive. Darcy handed me an earpiece connected to the room's audio system. Security monitoring, she explained. I have access codes from managing Terrence's meetings. I hesitated, uncomfortable with eavesdropping. But Darcy's expression was urgent. Please, this affects more than just Terrence. I inserted the earpiece, catching Terrence mid-sentence. Deliberately sabotaged by collaborative teams, these results are meaningless without context. Eliza's voice was calm. The methodology was agreed upon by both companies. The metrics were established collaboratively. Every project had independent verification. It's too soon for meaningful comparison, Terrence insisted. Traditional approaches show their value over longer timeframes. That wasn't your position when we agreed to the comparison, one board member noted. And it contradicts your own previous claims about quick wins from hierarchical efficiency, added the other. Terrence's voice lowered. This is a personal vendetta. Merit has manipulated this entire situation to discredit me. This isn't about merit, Eliza replied firmly. This is about organizational effectiveness. The data is clear. Collaborative teams are outperforming traditional hierarchies across every meaningful metric. Give me 6 more months, Terrence pleaded. I can turn these numbers around. We're not suppressing the report, Terrence, Eliza stated. The industry is watching. Transparency was the point of this initiative. His voice hardened. Then you leave me no choice. I'll release my own analysis showing the methodological flaws. That would violate your employment agreement, one board member warned. I don't care, Terrence shouted, slamming his hand on the table. I won't let her win. The room fell silent. Her? Eliza finally asked. This is about beating merit, not about what's best for our company or clients. Terrence seemed to realize his mistake. That's not what I meant. I think it's exactly what you meant, Eliza interrupted, and it clarifies several decisions you've made recently. She exchanged glances with the board members, who nodded slightly. Terrence, we're releasing the comparison report as scheduled, and effective immediately, we're restructuring your division. What does that mean? His voice had lost its force. It means your position as Chief Strategy Officer no longer exists. We're implementing collaborative teams across all divisions, including yours. You can't do this, he whispered. Actually, I can, Eliza replied. The board unanimously approved the restructuring last night after reviewing the comparison data. I removed the earpiece, having heard enough. Through the window, I could see Terrence slumped in his chair, defeat evident in every line of his body. Darcy touched my arm. We should go before he comes out. As we hurried toward the exit, I asked, why did you want me to witness that? She stopped at the door. Because you needed to see it wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about creating something better. She smiled slightly. You changed an industry by focusing on creation rather than competition. He destroyed his career by doing the opposite. I nodded, understanding completely. Thank you, Darcy. No, she replied. Thank you for showing there's a better way to work. The comparison report published that afternoon, sending shockwaves through the industry. Collaborative teams had outperformed traditional hierarchies by significant margins across all key metrics. More significantly, employee satisfaction and retention rates were dramatically higher in collaborative environments. That evening, as our team celebrated the validation of our approach, I received one final message from Terrence. Congratulations, you won. But remember, businesses are fickle. Today's innovation is tomorrow's outdated approach. This isn't over. For the first time, I felt only compassion reading his words. He still didn't understand. This had never been about winning or losing. It had never been about him versus me. It had been about creating a better way to work, one that recognized contribution, fostered innovation, and valued people as creators rather than resources. My revenge wasn't destroying Terrence. It was building something better than what he represented. Something that made his approach obsolete, not through competition, but through evolution. I typed a final reply. You're right about one thing. It's not over. But that's because transformation never ends. There's always something better to build. I hope you find a way to be part of it rather than fighting against it. 6 months later, Our collaborative model had become the industry standard. Our consortium had grown to include 67 companies. Terrence had disappeared from the professional landscape, declining interview requests and maintaining no public presence. Until the day I received an unexpected email. Coffee? I have a proposition to discuss. Terrence. Curiosity won over caution. I agreed to meet Terrence at a quiet cafe downtown. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the expensive watch, the tailored suit, the practiced confidence. Instead, he wore casual clothes, his posture more subdued. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "Curiosity is a powerful motivator," I replied. "What proposition could possibly interest me after everything that's happened?" He took a deep breath. "I want to join your consortium." I carefully set down my coffee cup. "You want to join the collaborative model you've spent years fighting against?" "Not as a company," he clarified. "Personally, as a consultant." "Why would we consider that?" I asked, genuinely perplexed. "Because I understand the traditional model better than anyone. I know exactly where the resistance points are, what fears drive opposition to change." He leaned forward. "I could help companies transition more effectively." I studied his face, searching for signs of deception. "This is quite a transformation." His eyes dropped to the table. "After losing my position, I did some consulting work. Traditional stuff. But clients kept asking about implementing collaborative models. They'd seen the comparison results." He smiled wryly. "I found myself studying your approach just to remain relevant. And I realized something unexpected. The collaborative model isn't just more effective, it's more sustainable. It creates healthier workplaces." He met my gaze directly. "I've spent 20 years climbing hierarchies by pushing others down. I'm tired. And I'm good at exactly one thing, understanding organizational dynamics." I remained silent, processing his words. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "I'm asking for an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to something better than what I helped create. Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," he admitted. "Not yet, but you believe in giving people chances to prove their value. That's the foundation of your entire model." I considered his request carefully. The idea was either brilliant or disastrous. Terrence's intimate knowledge of traditional hierarchies could indeed be valuable for companies transitioning to collaborative structures, but his history made trust impossible. "Here's what I can offer," I finally said. "A 3-month probationary contract. You'll work with one transitioning company under phased direct supervision. No client contact without her present. Complete transparency on all communications." "Agreed," he said immediately. "And one more condition," I added. "You'll publicly document your experience. The challenges, the revelations, the mistakes, everything." His expression tightened. "You want me to publicly admit I was wrong?" "No," I corrected. "I want you to publicly share your learning journey. There's a difference." He considered this, then nodded slowly. "That's fair." As we concluded our meeting, he asked the question I'd been expecting. "What made you do it? Expose me? Change the company? Transform an industry? Was it really just about creating something better? Or was revenge part of it?" I looked at him directly. "It started with wanting justice, perhaps even revenge, but it evolved into something more important. I realized destroying you wouldn't fix the real problem. The problem was a system that rewarded taking credit over creating value." "And now?" he asked. "Now I understand my true revenge wasn't ruining your career. It was building something so fundamentally better that your approach became obsolete. I didn't need to destroy you. The market did that when given a clear choice between our models." His expression showed genuine understanding for perhaps the first time. "That's elegant. It's also more satisfying," I added, gathering my things, "because it doesn't just affect you. It helps everyone else." 6 months later, Terrence's probationary contract evolved into a permanent position. His insights proved valuable for companies struggling with transition. The public documentation of his journey became a case study in organizational transformation. The industry continued evolving. Our collaborative model expanded beyond our sector into adjacent industries. The fundamental nature of work was changing. Not everywhere, not completely, but significantly and irreversibly. My greatest revenge wasn't taking Terrence's job or destroying his career. It was creating a world where his old approach couldn't succeed and mine couldn't fail. A world where contribution matters more than position, where value creation trumps value extraction, where collaboration defeats competition. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making someone lose. It's about changing the very definition of winning. If you've stayed with me until the end of this story, you know it's about more than workplace drama. It's about creating better systems instead of just navigating broken ones. I hope it inspires you to look at your own challenges differently. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories about transformation and justice in unexpected forms. Because sometimes the most powerful change comes not from fighting what you hate, but from building what you believe in.